You're listening to Football, Philosophy, and Rocket Science, a Cleveland Browns podcast, a show where a philosopher and a rocket scientist try to make sense of the Cleveland Browns. The Football, Philosophy, and Rocket Science podcast is a part of the Fanatical Elves podcast network, a part of the Fans First Sports Network. Here are your hosts, Elliot Kennel and Joel Cade.
Hi there. I'm Elliot Kennel. I'm the rocket scientist, and he is Joel Cade, the philosophy professor.
Howdy.
And gosh, Joel, we have a lot of things to talk about. Let's start with defensive tackle Shelby Harris, who is a Cleveland Brown. I'm euphoric because I like defense. I think you win with defense. I do not think that you necessarily win with signing lots and lots of speedy wide receivers, especially if they don't actually catch footballs. Although, of course,
Anthony Schwartz. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, he's fast, but okay, we've got plenty of wide receivers on the team that I think we really actually like, and I wasn't really that concerned about getting another wide receiver, but defensive tackle really did concern me quite a bit. And Shelby Harris is a professional defensive tackle. He can also be used at defensive end. He's sort of a hybrid. And as you know, I think the NFL is coming to a realization, at least in my opinion, that they really want to stop the pass this year, and stopping the run is not that important because the rules are so beneficial to the receivers that unless the running back is getting 6 and 7 yards per carry, you might as well defend against the wide receivers. And I think that it makes sense to have 3 defensive ends and 1 defensive tackle, or maybe a 3-man front. And Shelby Harris is that guy who can be kind of a extra pass rusher. I like this move. What do you think?
I think he's going to fit in on the 3 technique. I watched some highlights of this before the show, and he does an excellent double gap technique. I've watched him take on 2 blockers and hold his own. I've watched him read an offensive lineman, shoot through a hole, be disruptive. This is perfect. This is exactly what the Browns need. You know, just a guy like this to come in. I don't think there's going to be too much transition for him. Basically, this is going to be show up, get in shape. You're our starting defensive tackle.
Yes.
That's what I think this is.
Yes, I think so too. I think, at age 31, we don't want him to play every down, but I would put it this way, is that how much is he going to move the point spread compared to, say, DeAndre Hopkins going in for, Elijah Moore? Is he really that much of an upgrade over Elijah Moore? I'm not sure. So I think that this is a good move. I'm very, very happy with that.
I do want to start on something here. No more than they've signed Shelby Harris. There's like a bunch of people out there talking about how they're going to cut Jordan Elliott. I don't understand this. I don't understand the cut Jordan Elliott thing. Okay, I can see Tommy Togiai getting cut because Tommy Togiai is small, has short arms, and it's not really an ideal build for this kind of defense, because you want to get your arms on the offensive lineman before they get their arms on you. So I can see Tommy Togiai being the odd man out. I don't see Jordan Elliott being the odd man out. This is the first time Elliott's going to be in a double gap defense. I think, now maybe the Browns know something I don't, which they probably do. I think this is going to be finally the year that Elliott actually plays up to some of his potential. But you got everybody out there cutting Jordan Elliott. So I don't know. Maybe they see something I don't.
Okay,
but
well, I'll tell you what I think is that Siaki Ika is not getting cut.
I would agree with that.
That gives us 3 guys that absolutely are going to make the team, because Dalvin Tomlinson is a borderline Pro Bowl candidate. And so somebody, either Jordan Elliott or Tommy Togiai, are probably going to get cut.
What about Maurice Hurst?
And pardon?
What about Maurice Hurst?
Yeah, I think he's probably in danger. I think it's going to be tough to have 4 guys that play defensive tackle. That's probably the maximum number that you want to take into the season.
Right.
They could go in with as few as 3, because I think that they're so There's a lot of defensive ends that they'd like to keep. They'd probably go in with 9 defensive linemen.
I don't even think they have 3 defensive ends on the team.
Pardon?
I don't know if they even have 3 defensive ends on the team anymore.
No, they have a lot of guys that I think that they really have to keep. They're going to have to keep.
I think you got to keep Garrett, Smith, Okoronkwo. I think you got to keep Isaiah McGuire. Yeah, I think that's who you keep.
I think they keep Alex Wright. They have to keep him. I think they
so.
like Isaiah Thomas. So
if they liked him that much, they wouldn't have drafted Isaiah McGuire. I don't know. I just think the cut here
they drafted them in the same year. So okay, we've just got our
Alex Wright and Isaiah Thomas were drafted
6 guys
last year, and Isaiah McGuire was drafted this year. And I think if they liked Wright and if they liked Isaiah Thomas, they wouldn't have drafted Isaiah McGuire. But I like to think that the issue on defensive tackle comes down to who do you keep? Like if you're keeping Tomlinson, you're keeping Shelby Harris, you're keeping Siaki Ika, right? So then there comes a question: if you keep 4. Are you keeping Elliott, Togiai, or Hurst? And in my money, I'm keeping Elliott, unless Hurst comes out and balls out, which I don't think we've seen yet because he's currently 4th on the depth chart. So that's how I see it.
Okay,
I think Jordan Elliott's the winner.
Be interesting, but I think somebody good will be cut. It'll depend on who they think can survive waivers and who they can put on the practice squad.
Or who they can get value in the trade market. If you can trade Jordan Elliott, who's going into his last year, and you can get something for him, then you just keep Maurice Hurst or you keep Tommy Togiai and you move on. And then when they leave, get something from them. So
That goes without saying, but I really doubt whether you can get meaningful return in a trade for any of our borderline players. I think that's wishful thinking, frankly.
I agree, but I think the best of the rest right now is Jordan Elliott. So, okay, I'm sticking to it.
All right.
Throwing my line.
Well, we would love to make a trade for sure. I agree with you there. If we can make a trade and get something back, even if it's, the not the bottom guy in the totem pole, but somebody that really actually has value to our team, I think I'd consider trying to get some resources.
And I would say on the other, hold on, before we move on, we'll see the last thing. You line up Harris, Tomlinson, Garrett, and Zadarius Smith on that defensive line at one time. That is a scary proposition for any offense.
It's a tremendous. Fans have to really understand what a major upgrade the defensive line is this year compared to last year. This is not your father's Cleveland Browns, man. Yeah, this is different. It is different.
This team will be a lot of fun to watch on defense. I was actually watching this game, this game with last game with my son, and we were watching the defense. And he's like, "Wow, the whole team is around the ball." I'm like, "That's the difference. That's the difference between a double gap scheme and a single gap scheme in action. The single gap scheme, and I was showing because I forget who they're even playing anymore. The other team was the Jets were running a single gap scheme, and so their players are going all vertical, straight up field, and the Browns players are going lateral, and they're all converging on the ball." And he's like, "Wow!" And I'm like, "Look, that's the difference between the two schemes. One scheme, you got people just running upfield as fast as they can to try to make a play before he gets out of the backfield. Then it's just a mess. But on a double gap scheme, the whole team has read their keys and they're running to the ball as fast as they can to make a play. That's the difference. That's what it looks like." So it was actually on display last week. And Shelby Harris plays that defense, plays that style, and he's a playmaker in that style. So it's really kind of exciting to see this go down.
Yes.
And be excited to see Jordan Elliott back him up.
Yeah, I'm a believer that you dominate. You dominate with defense. It starts on the defensive line. We did not have the defensive line. We had Myles Garrett and a bunch of guys last season. That's just the way that it was. But let's move on now. Let's
take our commercial break real quick.
Oh, okay.
Then we'll dedicate the rest of our time to the Washington Commies. So after the break, we're going to head up on this week's opponent this Friday. The Browns will be at home versus the Commanders, and we are giving away 2 free tickets to that game. So come on to the the Fanatical Elves Sports Network, the Fanatical Elves Network X/Twitter page. Like, subscribe, find the tweet or the post I'm going to get this right, that has the announcement of the ticket giveaway. Repost that situation there on Twitter/X and get yourself entered for that. Also, we are selling merchandise, which I still don't have the website for. But if you go to our Twitter page, after you subscribe,
selling very much.
After you followed, you can get on that link and you can buy the What the Elf Was That? Football Philosophy and Rocket Science. You can get yourself all the gear you need to rep and look just like Elliot. You can get his hat. You can get his suit. Well, I don't know if we can get all that yet, but maybe we'll get to this hat and the suit pretty soon. But all right, so after the commercial break and we make our millions of dollars, we're going to talk about this week's opponent, the Washington Commanders. So, all right, catch you on the flip side. All right, Elliot. So this week,
I feel wealthy now. Wow.
Yeah, good for you. We're making all that cash. We can go to the strip club after this. So after this
Browns
week,
players there probably.
Yeah, they're going to take all the action. You know, this week the Browns are playing the Washington Commies, and I would call them the Commies because they're the Commanders, and also because they just have no name. I mean, I don't understand. This team has a bunch of names and it has no name. But before we get into all that crazy crap, let's just actually talk about what's going on from last year to this year with the Washington Commanders. What you got for us, Elliot?
Well, of course, they've had a change in ownership, and they've been for 24 years. They've been working for Dan Snyder. It's just been really a reign of error. He's been one of the worst owners in professional sports, and we're glad to see him go.
Yeah.
And the whole town of Washington is euphoric, rightly so. And I think you know more about Josh Harris than I do, but he was a proponent of rebuilding kind of in the Sashi Brown mode. Why don't you tell us about Josh Harris?
First of all, Josh Harris has become the new member of the board.
Okay.
Well, let's try that again. It wasn't very loud. Here we go.
We are the Borg. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile.
Yeah. So new member of the Borg is Josh Harris and the Josh Harris group, a part of a group that has Magic Johnson as a part of the group. And Josh Harris, if you guys recognize the name from the NBA fame of the Philadelphia 76ers. And the Philadelphia 76ers were famous because of the process. And yes, just blanked on his name. Used to be the Browns GM, actually went to Philadelphia. Sashi Brown worked on that team as a part of the process. And this is where the Philadelphia 76ers stunk it up for 3 seasons in the NBA to get the first draft pick so they can get a transcendent player and become a good basketball team, which has worked for them, much to the chagrin of every NBA owner. So he was not a fan favorite of other owners in the NBA because he blatantly tanked for 3 straight seasons.
Yeah, but they still keep on blowing it, and they never win, do they?
I don't know. I don't follow basketball.
Okay, well, yeah, they keep
I'm too busy with football and philosophy, man.
Yeah,
okay. NBA was something else.
Yeah, their prima donna player wants to get traded and stuff, and he's not worth his money. And okay, we don't care about them. Yeah, okay, whatever. But what we do know is that they also have a new offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, who was the Kansas City Chiefs coordinator for a number of years, and he's anxious to prove that it wasn't just Andy Reid and it wasn't just Patrick Mahomes, but it was also Eric Bieniemy making all the right play calls for all those years, and he'd like to show that he can make a great offense in Washington. And
this was also the guy who was passed up for head coaching jobs and kind of really elevated the conversation of race and head coaches in the NFL.
Well, that's true. On the other hand, he's not getting really great press in Washington as offensive coordinator either. Let me read to you from August 8th from ESPN's John Keim. And he's quoting Washington Commanders coach Ron Rivera said that some of his players expressed concern over new offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy's intensity during practice. But Bieniemy, also the assistant head coach, said that he's not about to change his approach. He's sent the first offense off the field because it didn't get into the huddle fast enough. He's demanded that the offense get in and out of the huddle quicker. So, yeah, it sounds like he's really intense, yells a lot, and does stuff like that, carries on. I guess that's okay. But
I think there's some problems with that kind of stuff in his personal life, too. And I'm not getting into that because I can't quantify or confirm that there have been issues in his personal life, but I believe there have been.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm wrong, you can correct me.
I think, those things, Pete Rose used to say, I don't have any problems as long as I hit 300. I think that kind of translates to football as well. There's a lot of pressure on Bieniemy. A lot of it is self-generated. He needs to show that he can be a quarterback guru. Speaking of quarterbacks, let's talk about quarterbacks. The next franchise quarterback of Washington is going to be Sam Howell.
Okay, I'm going to interject for a second. Okay, so you got to think when Josh Harris buys this team, he's got to be salivating. He's got Ron Rivera as his head coach who knows nothing about analytics, nothing, and loses his games for his team by not knowing what's going on. This was the guy after the Browns game who said, we could have made the playoffs this game. Like, dude didn't even know his team could make the playoffs, and he's out there coaching, okay? Now you've got Sam Howell out of the University of North Carolina, and I have some friends in North Carolina, a lot of friends in Charlotte. They'll just, freak when I say this. He was a 4th-round pick, I think, for a reason. 5th-round pick for a reason. He was a 5th round. He's slow, but he likes to be a running quarterback. He was slow in college. Now, imagine playing against guys who run much faster 40s with you than you, and they weigh 300 pounds chasing you around. This is like Josh Harris is perfect. Like, we're going to walk in here and we're going to tank. We're just going to tank this whole season. We got Eric Bieniemy, who couldn't get along with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. He blew that situation for himself. We got Ron Rivera, who we know is like a terrible clock manager and makes idiotic decisions with his football team. And you just wonder if he's there half the time. And we've got Sam Howell as our starting quarterback. We are on the road to tank.
Yeah, he was a 21-year-old quarterback last season. He started the season at age 21. I believe I'm correct that there's only been 2 21-year-old quarterbacks that have had winning seasons as a starter. One was Lamar Jackson, who is, of course, the exception to every rule. And the other was David Woodley of the Miami Dolphins in about 1980.
Oh, Elliot with the stat. Drop the mic, Elliot.
It's just hard. Now, so, all right, that brings us to today. He's still only 22 years old. He might have some ability to play quarterback, but I think it's unrealistic to expect even a 22-year-old to play quarterback at a high level in the NFL and expect him to do it right away. I think it might be a exasperating season for offensive coordinator Bieniemy. But what they do have is some really fast wide receivers. They've got 2 4-3 guys from Ohio State and Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel. And their third guy is Jahan Dotson, who is the 2022 number 1 pick from Penn State. And he's a 4-4 guy in low 4-4s. So they probably have about the fastest wide receivers in the NFL. And it just makes me wonder, did the owner pick these guys? That sounds like something that an owner would do, is just pick speedy wide receivers for the team at the exclusion of all else.
No, that's the
lineman and speedy wide
general manager.
But
that's the
anyway,
former general manager. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing either. So
so anyway, they got really fast wide receivers, and they wanted to have a quarterback that had a really strong arm, and so they got a guy that tossed a pigskin 59 miles per hour in the 22 combine, and that was one of the fastest times in many years. Now, combine miles per hour speeds do not translate from year to year because they set up the radar guns a little differently from one year to the next. But anyway, he's got a very, very strong arm, not necessarily a very, very accurate arm. And the buzz out of Washington's summer camp is that he's had trouble with accuracy and he's throwing interceptions in practice. So I don't know if we think that he's really a franchise quarterback right away out of the box, and how much patience do they actually have with a 22-year-old quarterback. The hallmark of a bad team is that they have zero patience waiting for a franchise quarterback. They'll give him probably about 3 games. And then who do they think that they'll have as the next quarterback? It's Jacoby Brissett, the Cleveland Browns quarterback last season. I think Jacoby Brissett is pretty good. He can run a football team. He does not have the strongest arm in the NFL, but he can run a team and get some W's out of it. That's what I think. Comment.
I tell you what, I think the Commanders are set up to get the first overall draft pick. And then when the first overall draft pick, the guy from USC or whoever it is they're getting, it's going to have a terrific wide receiver core as soon as he gets to Washington. That's what I think is happening this season.
I like the Commanders in terms of their defense. They've got some really good guys on the defensive line still, and you really have to look at the wide receiver core. Looks really great, and they did upgrade the offensive line also. They drafted 2 linemen, and they signed Austin Reiter, the former Cleveland Brown, at offensive tackle. So they've done what they could to upgrade the team. They don't have a great running game. They're going to throw. I think that calls for Jacoby Brissett and not a 22-year-old kid with a cannon.
If you're trying to win games.
If you're trying to win games. I think that the way that this team is going to be decided actually will be by depth. I think that their front, their 22 best guys are probably pretty good, but I don't know that I trust, the guys at the bottom of the roster. I just don't know them that well. I do think.
Well, you'll get to see them Friday.
But we'll learn a little bit more about them. But
I see them all game Friday.
We'll really learn a little bit more about their quarterback situation. We'll learn perhaps whether we believe that we have a franchise quarterback. I hate franchise quarterback. I think that's such a dumb concept. And I really think it's dumb when you want to have a 22-year-old kid be the franchise quarterback, and he has to be the franchise quarterback right away this year. And, there's so much emotion riding on this, and I just don't think that they're going to have any patience with him. That's what I think.
No, I really I don't even know what to think, man. I just think they're just set up to fail.
Yeah.
I think they're set up to fail.
Perfect script. You've got an offensive coordinator that's put a lot of pressure on himself. You've got a euphoric fan base that has expectations that are sky high now that they've rid themselves of a 24-year-old curse. They're expecting that the frog is going to transform into a handsome prince, and that they're going to have a transformational experience immediately. They've got stars. They really do have stars on offense and on defense, and it's not crazy to think that they're going to be really good, especially early on. I just really don't know how deep their team is on the total roster. That I really am not sure. I just don't really have a good feel for who they've got on the back end of the roster. That I don't know.
Well, let's talk about Friday for a second. What do we expect to see? Let me give a little preview of what I think we're going to see. Defense, we're going to see that 4-3 defense that the Browns run. The Commanders run it really, really well. They got decent defensive backs, but they're really stacked up front. I don't think we're going to see the up front people. So I think we're going to see a lot of their backups. On offense, I think they're going to go to that kind of hybrid pro college style that the Chiefs run with Mahomes. that they kind of adopted by necessity with Mahomes because he came out of that air raid. Cliff Kingsbury, who I referred to as Pimp Number 2, if you listen to What the Elf Was That, he is Pimp Number 2. So if you want to go back, listen to that, figure out what that's all about. Yes, I called Cliff Kingsbury a pimp, and I back it up in my podcast. So Pimp 2 had Elliot's offended or something, but he comes out of that offense having been coached by Pimp Number 2, and you have to kind of teach him the pro game slowly, and that's why Mahomes came along slowly, and they developed this kind of hybrid college option spread stuff along with pro concepts that they do in Kansas City really, really well now. And Bieniemy is taking that into Washington, and how quickly are they going to adapt to that? Sam Howell played that spread style at North Carolina, so it may be easier for him to adapt to it. I think their success is going to ride on whether or not Howell, obviously can play a college-style offense in the professional ranks. We'll see how that goes. But on Friday, I think we're going to see that offense open up a little bit and at least see the backups run it a little bit. And I think we might see some Jacoby Brissett.
Oh, I think you have to. I think there is a quarterback competition in Washington. Unlike Cleveland, they have to play their number one guy because he needs to win a job. It's not going to be given to him automatically. And so they are going to open up their offense. They are not going to have a running game. So they're going to be throwing the ball all over the ball yard, even though their first-string wide receivers probably won't play. They're nevertheless going to run that offense as if the first string was present. And so they'll be throwing deep against the Browns. And I look for lots of bombs to be thrown all over the place. And I think that there could be some interceptions, some long completions, and some go to the wrong jerseys. And I think it'll be a very exciting game. So I look for a lot of long ball.
I don't know if you're going to get a lot of long ball out of Jake Fromm, man. Jake Fromm is the third string quarterback.
Jake Fromm. No. I'm saying that Sam Howell is going to play a lot, and so is Jacoby.
I can't imagine Sam Howell's playing a lot.
They have to play him because he has to win the job. They're not.
It's like
this
is like the Browns playing Deshaun Kaiser in the preseason.
Yeah.
My God, we got to get him ready to play the season.
Absolutely had to play him. And now the Browns were exceptionally stupid that year. But remember that Kaiser was not thought to be the candidate in game one. They were going to have what's my man's name?
Brock Osweiler.
Yeah, Brock Osweiler was going to be the number one quarterback. So he got a lot of work in game one. He had a bad game, so they said, "Okay, you're fired." And then they let Kaiser have a lot of throws in game two. And
I was actually at that game. I think that was in Cleveland.
Yeah, and he
came back and won that game.
Yeah, he went 6 for 18, and they said, "Oh, that's really awesome. 6 for 18, that's good enough. Okay, you're our man. You're a franchise quarterback based on 6 for 18. That's good enough."
Well, that's because Kaiser could do what Kaiser could do. Kaiser had a long ball accuracy. He just had no accuracy short or intermediate, but he could throw the long ball pretty accurately. And so when you just throw the ball down the field,
there was no. I'm not buying this for a minute. There was no logic to anointing a 21-year-old quarterback with limited experience in college.
Oh, no, I'm not saying this is the reason why they did it. I'm just saying they were dumb. They got excited about stuff they saw in one game on tape and thought, let's just roll with this.
Yeah, no, I believe that Washington will play first string and second string at quarterback for a reasonable amount of time in the first half. And they're not going to turn the ball over to Fromm immediately. Fromm will probably play substantially in the second half, but you're going to see both Howell and Brissett, I believe, throw a lot of passes, and they're going to go all over the place.
It also looks like Deshaun Watson's going to start. So I'm guessing
I would think that he would start. He would start, but not play extensively. I think the Washington quarterback Howell will play more than Cleveland quarterback Watson. That's what I would think.
I think Watson's going to come and play a series, maybe 2, and that'll be his night.
Just a tune-up. He's not win. Yep. He does not have to win his job. He just needs to get tuned up.
Yep. All right, Elliot. I think that runs our time for tonight.
I think so. I think we had a lot of fun. I hope our fans did as well. It's going to be a fun game on Friday. I hope to see you at the stadium. So, all right.
Give me a second here. Thanks for listening, and go to our page on X/Twitter and follow, subscribe, whatever the heck they call it anymore, and get yourself entered for those tickets so you can go watch the game.
Hey, I heard a rumor, Joel.
What's the rumor?
I heard a rumor that this show might be called the Cleveland Browniacs soon. Is there any truth to that rumor?
We might be rebranding Football Philosophy and Rocket Science because we don't really talk about much rocket science or football, we do talk about football. We don't talk about much philosophy or rocket science. So we might just call ourselves the Cleveland Browniacs, which might be a better name for us.
Well, probably we have some fan opinion. You probably need to comment whether that's a good idea or not.
So, leave us a comment.
Give us
Email
a comment.
Us at the leftguard@gmail.com.
Let us know that too. We love hate mail. In fact, we'll probably read that on the air.
We'll probably most definitely put the hate mail on the air.
Yeah.
All right. Let us know, guys. Let us know.
Johnny, football.
Thank you for listening to Football Philosophy and Rocket Science, a Cleveland Browns podcast. Please subscribe, and tell all your friends to give a listen. You can follow Joel on Twitter at The Left Guard and Elliot at The Village Elliot.